A rat is exposed and it looks like bad news for Emison fans. Let's break down episodes 3 and 4 of Pretty Little Liars and Perfectionists and find out just what happened. What's going on, you lovely people? Lisa here, and I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind, but it is now time to catch up on the last 2 episodes of The Perfectionists. So we still have our mystery of who killed Nolan, and while Booker thinks it's one of the 3 perfectionists, right now they're really trying to push it to make us think it's Mason. And a lot of you commented on my recap of the first episode saying that I was wrong, saying Alison and Emily broke up, but I kind of feel like I wasn't totally wrong, because in this episode, or in these 2 episodes, the last one, we have some divorce papers being served. So right now things are looking pretty grim for Emison. But yeah, there's a lot of drama that happens, leaving us with cliffhangers on what's going to happen to Mona and Alison. So let's just break down these 2 episodes. So last we left off, we had Alison covering for the Perfectionists. So now they're all over at her house, and she explains to the others the alibi that they need to stick with. But of course, Dana Booker thinks they're still all lying and shows Claire Hotchkiss security footage of the trio about 3 hours before Nolan's death, and how they were gathered at Thorn Halls. So Claire basically tells Booker to use whatever she has to get them all to talk, while Claire says she's going to work on Caitlin to get her to rat on Ava and Dylan, since Caitlin kind of trusts her. So now the Perfectionists are of course trying to figure out if they should even trust Alison, and also they can't even figure out if they should trust each other, but right now their priority is trying to figure out who has Nolan's stash and their secrets. However, they're already breaking promises to each other when Ava and Dylan bail on helping Caitlin out at the student union packing a bunch of bags. Then Mason walks in the class and casually sits down in Nolan's old seat, which does not go over well with Ava. Now we basically have Nolan 2.0 on our hands, as Mason is kind of like, well, this is what Nolan would want me to do. Now as Ava runs out upset, Caitlin runs after her but ends up getting stopped by Booker, who basically lets Caitlin know she has Nolan's phone and has the pictures of her mom, which Caitlin tries to play off as being fake, but Booker continues to get into Caitlin's head, which actually works and sends Caitlin running off to Claire Hotchkiss for help, as Claire mentions that she does know about these pictures too, and Caitlin wants to make sure that these pictures are kept a secret. But of course, Claire is all slimy as far as we know, saying that the secret is kept safe with her, but that she wants Caitlin to spy on Ava and Dylan, since they're the other 2 suspects and their stakes aren't as high for them, so they can make, these 2 fall for it while Caitlin would get off. So Caitlin goes over to Ava's and starts to snoop around like she's going to do what Claire wants her to, but stops herself. And then Ava walks in, and Caitlin is like, gotta cover for why she's there, and she hands Ava a present that Claire thought was originally for Caitlin, but Caitlin knew was for Ava. And that present actually shows just how much Nolan did care for Ava and wanted to protect her. And this kind gesture of Caitlin actually giving Ava the present convinces Ava to, go help Caitlin at the student union, because she just needs to get her mind away from things too, as we saw her struggling, making her Vogue internship interview video all drunk. Now Booker isn't just getting into Caitlin's head, she also pays a visit to Dylan, and just as he's flipping through his iPad to see pictures of him and Nolan show up, she shows up, so he quickly hides those while Booker tries to get in his head. So to escape, he goes to the student union to help as well. We then see the Perfectionists actually start joking and getting along like real friends, and they're maybe starting to like each other's company. And then they explain how they're actually there because Booker is messing with them and they just needed to find comfort and tell each other this. And Ava tells them she has a secret as well. Remember in the first episode when we saw that Mini Cooper follow Nolan into the woods where he met up with Taylor? Well, it was actually Ava who was in that white Mini Cooper that followed him. So she was originally upset about the whole thing because she saw Nolan with a blonde and thought Nolan was cheating on her. But after receiving that gift Caitlin passed on to her, she knows it must have been something else, and they need to find clues in that cabin as to maybe who killed Nolan before Booker comes and destroys all of them. So they head out to that cabin in the woods, but someone else actually shows up there. It's Alison. But how did Alison know about this cabin in the woods? Well, for Alison, she fills Mona in on giving the kids an alibi, and then she wants to get information on Booker and Mason. But Mona has been locked out of BHU's network for suspicious activity, so Alison has to resort to combing through a yearbook. She then meets with Mason to kind of feel him out, and he basically relays how Nolan took everything from him, so now Nolan would probably want him to have what Nolan had. Mona, meanwhile, has figured out that the suspicious activity on her account came from a single source, which means that someone doesn't want her to know who killed Nolan, and that person is real good at whatever they're doing and has enough skill to pin this murder on whoever they want. So while Mona deals with all of that, Alison combs through this yearbook and finds a picture of Nolan and Mason at a cabin in the woods, and the caption says Secret Days. So Alison's kind of like, what does this mean? What is this cabin? And that is the cabin she finds the Perfectionists at. So they all kind of team up, snoop around, but then they tell each other they found nothing in this cabin when they actually did find something. Dylan found gum wrappers that matched the ones they found in the woods, and Alison notices a yellow rose, and after doing some social media browsing, it matches one that's on Taylor's grave. And now Alison goes to Mona and tells her she thinks Taylor faked her own death. As for the Perfectionists, on their way home, they smell something rotten, and they find Nolan's stash box in the trunk of the car with a dead rat in it, as well as a note that says, "One of you is a rat, you tell or I will." And right now, I just gotta give a gold star to Ava, who just doesn't flinch and picks that rat up and throws it into the woods. And all I gotta say is, you better scrub those hands real well. But now the stress of knowing someone knows their secrets and is watching them, it just overwhelms all of them, and they go off to finish their individual projects, which include writing a song, the Vogue video interview, and Caitlin even ignores Claire's calls. But then Caitlin runs into Mason and notices that he happens to chew the same gum as the wrappers they found in the woods and at the cabin. So she calls the others to say that she thinks Mason was the one in the woods that night. So they then all meet to discuss this as Caitlin continues to ignore Claire, but then Mason happens to show up, and his jerk factor has just escalated through the roof, because basically now he's trying to embody everything that scumbag Nolan had, and he's demanding Ava pay for his coffee and Dylan do his homework because he knows their secrets, even bringing up Dylan's relationship. So yeah, these three are even on edge more. You know, you have Booker getting in their heads, and now you have Mason messing with them. Meanwhile, Mona thinks Alison is a bit crazy for her theory about Taylor being alive, but then Alison's kind of like, well, we both faked our deaths. There was no body found with Taylor's suicide. And yeah, Alison is basing this off a gut feeling she had when someone told her that Mona was dead, and she kind of felt like she wasn't. We also see Alison dodging texts from Emily, so we know things aren't looking too good on the Emison front, but exactly what's going on there. Now Mona is able to get back into the Beacon Guard system and shows Alison that someone has been tweaking the program she made, and now this program is looking for a particular kind of smart person. And so far there are only 2 matches, Alison and Caitlin. And then a third one shows up, someone named Ray Hagedorn. So why would this program want to single out these 3 people? What do they have in common? Well, Mona decides to figure that out, as she happens to be Caitlin's advisor and meets with Caitlin to try to feel out how Caitlin feels about Alison and what these 2 may have in common. And when Caitlin describes Alison as someone who's intuitive, loyal, takes chances on people when she doesn't have to, it kind of matches comments Mona wrote down in her file about Caitlin after they first met. We then see Mona almost get her hand impaled when the handyman drops his screwdriver. Meanwhile, trouble is on the horizon for Dylan and Andrew, as Andrew tells Dylan that he met his pal Mason in the library. So now Dylan is worried even more. And we have Ava running into Booker, who hints at Ava using her dad's money to pay for college, but thankfully Alison comes to save Ava in this situation. Meanwhile, Caitlin goes to see Claire, and who happens to be there? Jeremy, who has been presenting some proposal, and he's waiting to see if he gets funding for it. And they think this is actually a good situation. Now people can actually see them meet supposedly for the first time, so it wouldn't be weird if they go get coffee and perhaps start dating. This could be their way to finally have a public relationship. So they decide that they're going to meet up for coffee later, as Claire comes in telling Jeremy that he got the funding for his proposal. Now Caitlin is there to meet with Claire to tell her that she can no longer spy on Ava and Dylan, and Claire basically tells Caitlin to show herself out and calls Booker to tell her to turn up the heat on these 3. So then we have our Perfectionists meeting up again, saying that they're not going to take Mason's crap, and Caitlin decides to play along and hang out with Mason and then secretly record their conversations. Maybe they can use it if he says something, you know, that leads them to believe he killed Nolan. Then they see someone has hijacked the scoreboard as it reads, "I see a rat." So they go tell Alison, because now they're more paranoid, and they realize that Mason's a great programmer, so they think he's definitely the one messing with them. Alison then tells them that secrets have a way of keeping you close and that they need each other right now, so maybe they should be honest with each other and tell each other their secrets. But none of them seem quite ready for this yet, and Dylan, he says that he has to tell someone else his secret before he can tell Ava. So he goes home and he's late for a date with Andrew. But Andrew's discovered another secret of Dylan's. Dylan has a pinched nerve and the doctors have told him to take a break from playing, but Dylan won't stop because of his audition. And well, this brings up the whole subject of honesty, which causes Dylan to finally tell Andrew about the hookup with Nolan, and unfortunately, it does not go so well as we see Andrew move out, and it seems like this couple is donezo for now. There may be trouble on the romance front for Caitlin and Jeremy, as well as we see Caitlin cancel the coffee date when she sees Mason come into the student union, so she decides it's time to record him on her phone. And then we see her get a message that says, "I see you, A," and it's kind of like, oh hell no, pause for a second, PLL. We are not doing this again. We are not doing another A mystery thing. But thankfully, it's actually not that. It's just kind of a fun nod to the original show to throw us off a tad bit. But the A here is Ava, who's actually sitting there keeping a watch out for Caitlin to make sure nothing happens with Mason. So Caitlin goes to talk to Mason, and Mason brings up how he'd never rat out Caitlin as he knows about Jeremy, and he doesn't like Jeremy. So now Caitlin is scared and tells Ava that all she got out of this conversation was that Mason had an alibi. He was at a boat party the night of the murder. But Ava knows that Caitlin is straight up lying to her and tells Dylan, so they try to call Caitlin, but it goes to voicemail. We then see Jeremy show up at Caitlin's practice, pissed that she lied to him because he went to the library and the library happened to be closed when she said she was there. And Caitlin just keeps telling him they can't be seen in public, he has to go, as she sees Mason looking on, watching them. So then Caitlin goes to get some advice from Alison and tells Alison about Jeremy and Mason and what should she do? What do these secrets happen to, is it good to keep these secrets? And then we see Caitlin call Jeremy to apologize for lying, and then she just tells another lie saying that she had a panic attack from all the craziness that's going on, and that's why she canceled, so she'll call him when things calm down. As for Ava, she ends up returning home and finding a music box playing on her bed, but no one is there. She can't find anybody, but she thinks this was left by her dad. And can we just take a moment here to point out that Protozoa plays Ava's dad. Now, if you get this reference, you're getting a high five. It's basically, if you grew up on the old school Disney Channel original movies, you know that Protozoa is from Xenon. And this whole thing just made me smile because we haven't seen that actor, I feel like, in a while. Maybe we have, I just haven't noticed, but I liked seeing a familiar face pop up. Anyway, we see Ava listening to this music box, remembering her dad, sketching a baby picture of herself, and then Caitlin comes over to drop a bombshell. She's got a huge secret she needs to let out. She is actually the rat. And we don't know if she's actually the rat that's being referenced, but she herself thinks she is a rat, because when she first heard that Nolan was dating Ava, she looked up Ava on the internet, found out everything about her family, and told one person about it. And that person ended up spreading Ava's family's dirty laundry, and that caused the news, the paparazzi, all that to show up at the school and basically ruin Ava's, fresh start that she had. So Ava is really pissed about this whole thing and yells at Caitlin to get out. We then see Ava go and pull the bag of money from her hiding spot and put the music box in it as she wonders if her dad is back. Okay, now back to Alison and Mona and what they've been up to in this fourth episode. Alison and the Perfectionists notice a collection of Oz books on a cabinet that belonged to Taylor, so Alison brings these to Claire, who says that these books just belong at the house, she can keep them, and that Taylor always had quite this imagination about the land of Oz, overlaying her own personal geography on the maps in the book, and how Taylor thought that the Emerald City was out there in the woods somewhere. Mona then gives Alison an update on how Caitlin and Alison have the same personality traits, but now they gotta figure out who this Ray guy is, but he's not showing up, so Mona's gotta use her hacking skills and whatever to track this guy down. Then these two have a conversation about the status of Alison and Emily, and it is pretty heartbreaking as Alison says that Emily stopped wearing her wedding ring and she thinks she's moved on.
I convinced myself that I came here with a clean slate, that I could prove to Emily that I could live a trustworthy life. But I realized the truth is, it was just too hard to be there close to her knowing that we wouldn't be together.
Then Mona changes the subject when she looks at the collection of books and says that one is missing from the set, The Patchwork Girl of Oz. We then see Alison send Emily an email saying how this last step has been really hard for her. And this is the real heartbreaking part as we see Alison sign those divorce papers and take her ring off. And it's like, guys, why are you doing this to us? Emison was supposed to be endgame. You have the other couples happy together, and here we're just tearing Alison and Emily apart. It's like, come on guys, we know the show's not over. There's still plenty of time that Alison and Emily could be endgame. Maybe that will now have Emily possibly coming to visit, but it hurts. It's a deep blow for Emison fans to see that these two are going to get divorced. Although we don't actually see Alison send the papers back, so that's another big step. You know, signing them is one thing, but actually putting them in the mail to send them back is another big one. But after Alison does all of that, she picks up one of those Oz books again, looks at the map, at Taylor's handwriting in it, and decides to follow it and goes out to the quarry where she finds a trailer, and inside that trailer is that missing book. And then in walks Taylor, who runs quickly back out and locks Alison in that trailer. Meanwhile, Mona decides to meet her online chess friend Bad Bishop in person, but before she can do that, she does locate this Ray Hagedorn and tracks him to Holdman Annex on campus, which is closed and scheduled for demolition. She then breaks into room 214 where clearly someone is living, and got a whole huge lab set up here, and there's also articles about Nolan and Taylor and hackers up on the wall. And then Mona turns around and in walks the maintenance worker who almost took her hand out with the screwdriver, and she's like, "Are you Ray?" And then he closes the door. And basically, those are the cliffhangers we leave off with episodes 3 and 4 of The Perfectionists. So essentially we have our perfectionists starting to trust each other, but now they're telling their secrets, and that's kind of really testing their relationship. So will it split them apart, especially Caitlin and Ava? And what happens when Dylan tells Ava that he hooked up with Nolan? I mean, it's just their secrets may bring them closer, but may also drive them apart. And Mason, he's basically the new Nolan here, which is super irritating. We don't know exactly why Claire Hotchkiss is also trying to make Booker ride this trio so hard. What is Claire trying to pin on them? She seems extra guilty now as well. So yeah, what all is she hiding herself? As for Mona and Alison, we have them both left in big cliffhangers. We gotta wonder if this Ray guy is a hacker, or is he actually going to be helpful to Mona? Is Taylor gonna move this trailer with Alison in it? Lots of questions, but one person who's super shady in this episode, or these 2 episodes, I feel like, is Jeremy, who, does anybody else think he looks a little bit like a young Eddie Redmayne? Anyway, we learn that Jeremy is an expert in large-scale data analysis, so he's got some major skills. Is he the one tweaking Mona's program? Also, we still need to figure out the whole deal with Beacon Guard and who Mona is talking to in the mirrors, because I don't think Beacon Guard and whoever is in the mirrors is quite the same thing. We do see at one point in one of the episodes Mona tapping on the mirror to see if anybody's actually there, and she looks behind it, so I'm curious about the whole mirror mystery. But there's just so much going on right now in this show that I don't know where it wants us to think. I don't know what kind of theories we're supposed to be trying to figure out. It's just a lot of stuff that's making my head spin, so let's just watch the promo for the next episode.
This isn't Rosewood, but it might be just as bad in its own uniquely creepy way.
Peanut brittle.
I'm on a cleanse.
Oh my God.
But we're about to break a lot of laws here. Felonies!
This nightmare will finally end.
Get out!
You're a miserable human being.
I can play the games however I want.
Okay, so both Alison and Mona get free. It does seem like Taylor moves this trailer. We got Dylan's nerve pain getting worse and rules being broken, and it seems like they end up killing Mason somehow, but then we see Mason's eyes open, so he's not dead. But they maybe think he's dead, which will give him freedom to still creep them out. Like, how much does he know? How does he know all of their secrets? Like, he has to be the one who stole the stash, right? I don't know, I just feel like I get more frustrated the more and more I talk about this show, which I guess is good because it'd be too easy if we knew one direct path of where they want us to think. I don't know. But I do kind of love the development of these characters so far. I'm really getting into these new ones, and I like the little nods that they do to the show and the mentions of old characters, even though the Emison one is not quite the happiest mention we could have. But yeah, that's all I kind of got right now. That was a lot to dive into for these 2 episodes. So thanks for bearing with me and listening to me ramble about it. I'll try to keep more up to date as the episodes air. But yeah, now it's time for you to hit me up in the comments down below with all your thoughts and your theories. Who do you think killed Nolan? What is Claire Hotchkiss hiding? Who's Mona's mysterious Bad Bishop chess partner? Can anybody here actually be trusted. Yeah, let me know what you think. Then click over here to see my interviews with the cast of the movie After that comes out this week. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And you can hit me up on social media as well with all your thoughts and theories. And hopefully I'll see you guys again next time to ramble all about the Perfectionists. I'm Lisa. See you then.